Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First line of questioning from Mr. Grosset. I'm always struck that every time we see a Russian poisoning case, they use the same poison all the time, it seems like, and it's also one that is easily identifiable and traced back to the FSB or one of their agencies. I'm assuming this is done to send a message as much as anything else, that they're doing this and they're not trying to do it secretly. They want people to understand what they've done. Am I right in that assessment?
That is a good of an analysis as anyone. We don't know what exactly is in their head, but my conclusion is that they have an optional approach. They are trying to use a weapon that they continually improve over the years and invest millions and millions in making more efficient, on the hope that it may remain undiscovered. But in the case it gets discovered, it has such a scary reputation that it achieves a different outcome, which is fear and intimidation. So they win from their point of view either way. If it remains undiscovered, they win. If it gets discovered and it points to them, they also win. They have zero reputation cost, and thus you're right that they don't mind being discovered.
Well, and on top of that, the Russians are notorious that when they do get caught red-handed, whatever they're doing, they just lie about it. A good example of that's the invasion of Ukraine. They get on TV all the time and say, well, this wasn't our fault. America did this. America caused this. It's phenomenal that they can do that, and yet people shrug their shoulders and walk away from it. So anyway, well, listen, for all three of you, I have a question that I'd like to, perhaps a general answer, and time's limited, so if you'd give me as brief an answer as you could, I would appreciate it. I think we're at a point on the planet where countries are deciding which club they're going to belong to. Is it a freedom and democracy and a government that is created by the people and operated by the people and disciplined by the people, or is it a dictatorship, an autocracy? And of course, the two governments operate very, very differently. And I note that none of the cases that have been referred to here today come from democratic countries. They come from the autocracies. So I think that our challenge as human beings in this century, in the 21st century, is going to be trying to figure out how the two groups of countries exist on this planet without killing each other. Because I think one thing we can all agree on, North Korea, Iran, China, they're not going to change. They're going to be the same for a long, long time to come for the foreseeable future. You hope that there's some change, but hope, as we all know, isn't much of a strategy. And the democracies are not going to change. We're not going to change. Great Britain's not going to change. The countries that make up the group of free countries aren't going to change. So the conduct we're talking about specifically in this hearing are small instances, and I say that not to demean them, because when I say small, I mean compared to a war like what's going on in Ukraine or in Israel. They're a unique, specific incident. They wind up in a newspaper reporting. Everybody reads it and what have you, but they turn the page and move on to sports or something else. So how do we deal with these? From country to country, how do we as a country deal with these? With the countries who perpetrate that and other free countries without going to war over them, obviously. And there needs to be some kind of discipline. There needs to be some kind of accountability. But how do you do that? What's your recommendation in how we deal with these? Let's go down the ideas just like we started. Mr. Grosset, if you'd start.
Very briefly, and I've said this before, I would advocate for invoking the principle of universal jurisdiction whenever feasible to investigate crimes that otherwise remain uninvestigated, because bad actors are not going to investigate themselves. So many countries have the principle of universal jurisdiction. Partly the United States can invoke it, but a crime that happens across several countries outside of the United States and has its core, its basis of an action decided in Moscow can still be prosecuted, but it is not at the moment. Everybody delivers the benefit of the principle of judicial sovereignty to bad actors. And this is one way that it, I think, can be somewhat curtailed. But you also pointed out that not every country is in the camp of either the bad actor or the good actor. Some countries are borderline. They're nominally democracies, and they are in many respects democracies, but they sometimes are afraid of taking action against China or Russia because of economic pressures. And those are very insidious non-actions sometimes. For example, Bulgaria, Hungary, Georgia, the country of Georgia, within certain governments are afraid to prosecute Russian crime or Chinese crime that happens on their territory. And such non-actions actually can be sanctioned, sanctions can be imposed against the people not prosecuting by the United States. So these are two examples I could see as very practical.
I'm out of time, but briefly, Mr. Abramowitz.
Thank you for the question. A couple points I'd like to make. First of all, I think since Freedom House began reporting on this phenomenon 3 or 4 years ago, I think that democratic governments have actually begun to kind of be much more aware of the problem and to actually do things about it. Is it perfect? No. But you see law enforcement agencies like the Justice Department, Homeland Security, the FBI, their agents are being educated about the problem. They're noticing these cases that they might not have noticed before. We talk with Western democracies as well. They are really beginning to be much more focused on this issue. There's not like a silver bullet, Senator, with this. I think that you know, we have in my testimony I outlined a range of different things: sanctions, visa bans, you know, the creation of tip lines for people to tip off law enforcement. This is going to be a generational struggle, I think. Russia, as you pointed out, Russia and China are not going anywhere. Other countries are choosing sides now. And I think what's really important is for particularly the United States government and other democracies to make clear that this is unacceptable behavior and to not sweep this under the rug. So when, especially people that are friendly to the United States, I mentioned India and Saudi Arabia, and these are, in Saudi Arabia is a significant perpetrator of transnational oppression. We've had 2 big cases that have been outlined from India recently. This should be a matter that is in the bilateral relationship. And if it's seen as being swept under the rug, then I think other governments will not take it as seriously.
Senator Menendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The People's Republic of China has committed a despicable campaign